With him is the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, former parliamentary representative for Castries Southeast, and former government minister, Guy Joseph. I am your moderator, Lenard Montoute, and today we have some very interesting discussions. Now, all credit to the opposition, those topics have been ventilated in the past, but I believe that it's sufficiently important that further discussion take place on these subjects, because the more I hear of those subjects, the more details I get, the more concerning it becomes. And it is important that you, Saint Lucia, get to understand those issues, to fully appreciate the extent to which our country is being taken for a ride, the extent to which you are being betrayed by your government, and the extent to which our country and our people have been exploited by the current government. And so we're going to look at, for example, the injustices that we are already sensing from the construction of the halls of justice. We are going to look at this outrageous situation that confronts Saint Lucia, where the government has literally sold out a premium part of our country, our ports, to a foreign company, possibly for the next 40 years, or at least for the next 30 years, at a minimum cost compared to the returns that they will be getting. But I will allow my guests to delve into the details of this for you to fully appreciate the sellout that has taken place and the way in which the promises that were made to you are being broken, and how the trust that you placed in this government is being betrayed. We will also take a brief look at the economy, because you are being told a lot of things, and a lot of figures are being bandied around to make you believe that all is well. And after you come from the jazz and the carnival and the cricket and, you party, that all is fine, all is well. I know you know differently, but we have to drive it home and make you fully appreciate the actual circumstance that we face in this country. It's not just about figures, it is about our reality. And so, gentlemen, welcome to the round table. It's a pleasure to have you all once again.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
And I will start off with what I consider to be the injustice that I sense in the construction of the halls of justice. Now, I know that it is a project that the United Workers' Party itself was interested in, and you had begun efforts to construct the halls of justice. We want to know what is the difference between what obtains now and what you intended doing, and explain to our viewers and listeners the differences, that would take place were you to return to government, as far as how you would approach this thing. So we had a sword turning ceremony on the 19th of April. We have had some discussion when Mr. Joseph, yourself, and I mentioned that the media was not invited. They made a song and dance about it, saying that that is not so. We will touch on that. And of course, we know too that in true fashion, true style, true to form, the government has been very sparing as far as details are concerned. And that is the case with every big project in this country. So, 143,000, 161,000, how much is it? Is it $5,000 a square foot? Is it $1,000 per square foot? It doesn't matter to me what you say. In any case, it is exorbitant. Gentlemen, Mr. Joseph, I think you should chime in first. Halls of justice.
Thank you, Mr. Montoute. And let me just say that there are fundamental differences between what happens on the Labour Party government and what happens on the UWP government. I think that every Saint Lucian can safely conclude that if there was one government that advanced Saint Lucians, that gave priority to Saint Lucians, it was the Alan Chastanet-led UWP. And I say this without fear of criticism, because the records will show that as much as possible, every major project executed between 2016 and 2021, we use our local contractors, the local capacity, and the capacity building in Saint Lucia was very good during the last 5 years of the UWP government. One of them would have been the halls of justice and the plans for it. There were initial designs. We had identified a site with all the amenities that were required for a hall of justice with a police station or police headquarters, and also the holding cells that were required in order to have people when you need to have court. If you need, let me give you a simple example. If you needed to move a high-profile prisoner, you think if court is 10 o'clock in the morning, you want to be able to move that person at 10 o'clock in the morning when everybody is anticipating? Whereas if you had the holding cells within the hall of justice, you know what would have happened? You could have moved that person anytime during the night or the day before. You could have a very good covert operation that is unknown to anybody. What we are seeing there is very different. So I'm establishing some of the fundamental differences with what we were doing and what Labour is doing. And I can...
Before you go further into the differences, there's a matter that is of concern to me. Now, the government did mention that they consulted with all parties, the Bar Association, the police, the judiciary, and also. And I think that's a good thing. The question I want to ask, did the United Workers' Party consult with all the interested parties?
You want to comment on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
so remember, the difference is that when we were looking at putting the halls of justice and the police headquarters next to each other, it was being done with NIPRO,
Okay.
right? Which is the traditional partner of government. A lot of the government buildings that we have today are being done through NIPRO. And the financing is being done through NIC.
Right.
NIC has a responsibility to make sure that pensioners' contributions grow.
Right.
Okay? So the ways that they do that is that they've been giving loans to the government, particularly in the buildings. Now, again, to make sure it's not part of government's debt, the asset, the land, and the building are put into NIPRO. So NIPRO owns it. The government pays NIC back through the form of a rent. So they pay NIPRO the rent, NIPRO then pays NIC for the loan.
All right.
Okay? So all
And
of-
at the end of it all, it belongs to the government and people of Saint
at
Lucian.
the end of it, the dollar, they pay $1
Right.
to NIPRO, and NIPRO hands the asset back over to the government of Saint Lucian.
That's right.
Okay? In some instances, NIPRO continues to pay. So a great example are all the police stations that were built around the island and the fire stations.
Right.
All of them were done through NIPRO, meaning the government put the land in, NIPRO owns the building, government pays the rent. The rent that they were paying was to pay back the loan and also to cover the maintenance cost of the building. So the police headquarters and the halls of justice were being built where the old police headquarters were. So when we had that situation where we broke down the buildings, and one of the more famous ones is the custody
Suites, yes.
Okay? And I hear people, and a caller called up to say that we had an agreement with National Trust, and that the government went and broke down the building without telling National Trust. It's not true. When we publicized the intention of breaking down custody suites, National Trust filed a court case against the government to prevent it from being able to do that. What we discovered at that time is that National Trust has the authority to declare buildings as historical buildings.
Right.
So if National Trust believes any building in St. Lucia has a historical value, they have to declare it and they have to publicize it by putting it in the Gazette. That was never done.
Right.
So it means that National Trust really didn't have any involvement. Once planning gave the approval, planning's responsibility is to speak to its partners. National Trust is one of its partners. Even if National Trust was to have objected, right, it doesn't prevent the building from going. Everybody has to sit down and make that decision collectively. The agreement that we gave in the courts was that we would give consideration to whether, in fact, we could maintain the custody suites, but that government retained its permission, its authority to make the final decision. When we went back and looked at trying to incorporate the custody suites into the building, and given the structural integrity, meaning when we see the structural integrity, is a very old building, and it was not on a very solid foundation. Once you started construction in the area, it was going to compromise the structure of the building. And we talked about whether we could build over the building. So what we agreed to do was to take items from the custody suites, which is a horrible place, let's not forget that, horrible, and make a museum in the new building. And that's why it was demolished. The other thing that seems to have been lost in the propaganda is the argument that the police headquarters and the halls of justice were one building. They were not one. They were two separate buildings in close proximity to each other. Why? Many countries now are moving towards having a police station and a courthouse near each other for the exact reason that Mr. Joseph was talking about. Yeah. When you have high-profile cases and you need tremendous amount of security. So let's look at it in the context of Saint Lucian. A prisoner comes from Bordelais, would arrive down where the police headquarters are, and there would be a drive downstairs. They would be held in a cell in the police headquarters, and then there was a tunnel designed underneath to bring the prisoner up to the courthouse without them ever going outside. When we think of what's being proposed now, is that they're going to have their own holding cell. So imagine a high-profile prisoner coming, and they're having to close down all the streets in that location next to Constitution Park.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a consultation with the courts as to the design of the courts. The design had been completed, and the costings hadn't been completed. So imagine, not to take Mr. Joseph's thunder, is that the police headquarters and the courthouse was going to be in excess of 100,000 square feet. The cost was $31 million US.
You said in excess of 100,000 square feet.
Correct.
And
so you were going to have six courthouses.
The cost would be $33 million.
So
and I know why I'm stressing that point.
Yes.
Because we have to come to that in a moment. $31 million.
Right.
Okay.
And you were going to get six criminal courts and three criminal courts and three civil courts.
Right.
Okay? The family court would have remained where it was, and some of the other courts would have remained where they were.
Okay, now gentlemen, I took a pause on the issue of cost because that has become a subject for discussion. Do you know the expected cost of this present Hall of Justice by this administration, the Saint Lucian Labour Party?
Yes, so the initial cost as proposed is 165 million EC dollars.
Well, I'm hearing different figures. I read in an interview done with the executive chairman of NH, which is the construction company, that is 165, but I heard the Prime Minister quote a figure of 143. In any case, over $140 million.
So they both, you see, when the intention is to deceive and not be upfront with information, that is what you get. So there's 143 million for the base cost of the building, and the outfitting of the building is the additional cost from what I'm gathering. Now, if you're going to build a building for me, am I not expected to have partitions in the building? Am I not expected to have all the layout? Because if we build in a courthouse, we're not building a shell of a building. So apparently they give the price for the shell of the building, and they give the price for the outfitting of the building.
But we don't know that.
See,
we have to speculate in the absence of detailed information.
I think that's the number one issue here.
That's right.
Okay? In the article, it makes reference to the $53 million, which would be the 144, and it also makes reference to 61. And it says the difference between the 53 and the 61 are fees. So is it the architectural fees, the bridge financing fees? To the minister's point, to Guy's point, is it also including furniture? It's vague, but two numbers were quoted. But what I can say to you is that the article was very clear. 53 million, then 61 million, and the 61 million does not include the cost of financing. The cost of financing is yet to come, yet to be determined. So regardless of whether you want to say, to Guy's point, the 53 million that they quoted would not be sufficient for you to move into the building.
Okay. So, gentlemen,
Is that a fair, is that a?
Yeah, so even before you come on, Mr. Montoute, here's where things get blurred. What is it that we are paying for? Because how can you know everything and you don't know your source of financing and the interest rate of your financing? Because that would have a major implication. So if I'm going to go and take a mortgage in the bank to build a house, am I not required to know beforehand what my mortgage repayments are? My mortgage repayments must include my interest payment. So, because I cannot separate the payment and say, okay, I'm not paying you for the interest now. For that matter, all of us who have mortgages know, if you pay $100 on a mortgage, 80 might go to the interest and 20 goes to the initial capital. So, what we are seeing here is apparently the government knows, but they are not telling us why.
No, here's what they told you. That when the lease ends, that you can buy back the building for $1.
Yes, they know.
Right? But nobody's told you how much that dollar has cost. Okay? As if, in fact, all the people of Saint Lucia are responsible for is the dollar.
Is the dollar.
Right? So, to Mr. Joseph's point, what you would have expected to have heard is that we're going to get this world-class building. It's going to be X number of square feet. The building was going to cost X number amount of money, and that the Ministry of Justice was going to pay the rent for the 12 years, and here's how much the rent was going to cost.
Okay, so let me get this clear. The building will cost either 143 or 161 million.
Without financing.
Without financing. The chairman of NH said that the financing will come from Republic Bank and himself.
Correct.
So they will provide the financing. And at the end of the day, we get a House of Justice and we just pay $1. Am I correct?
That, according to them.
But
So-
that is so wrong.
You know, because at the end of the day, it must be made clear to Saint Lucians
That they're paying for the building.
they are going to pay back that 165 or 143
In the form of
million
rent.
In the form of rent.
But that is without the cost of capital. And everyone knows, okay, on a 12-year loan, if you got 5% interest, you're talking about 60% interest. So what would be 60% of 165 million in just interest payments? And that is why I'm saying it is.
And let's put it in numbers. If it's $144 million, it means that the government has to pay just for the capital cost.
Right.
Not the finance, just the capital cost.
143 million, yeah.
Right? 144 million over 12 years, which means it's $12 million a year.
Right.
Right? Which means it's $1 million
A month.
a month.
Yeah.
Okay? If it is at 161 million, it's $13 million or $13.2 million a year or $1.1 million a month.
Right.
Okay? So that's just to repay the physical cost of the building.
Right.
You now have to add the financing. So even if you just take the financing cost at 5%.
Now, I want to be fair to the government because you said, Mr. Joseph, that, or was it you, Honorable Chastanet, that the cost of the House of Justice as proposed by the United Workers' Party would be $31 million.
Yes.
Including, remember, the deal was that we were going to get a police headquarters
Right.
and also a Halls of Justice.
Right.
Two separate buildings, but connected.
And a custody suites, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Holding cell.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
In a location where we had parking.
Okay.
Okay? Now,
That's
those
significant, yeah.
persons who know that piece of land, you had an entrance and an exit by Farron's Dairy.
Right.
Okay? You had an entrance and an exit by Brazil Street. So between Clico building and what is now West Indies Shipping, there's two buildings on the corner. My wife used to actually have her law firm, and she sold the building. And there's off of Brazil Street, there's a little road. They would have going to build a bridge to connect to the site.
Yes.
And then there was also now by the Coca-Cola factory. So you had three exits and entrances into the location. You had parking, and you had one holding cell that would serve both as custody suites and a holding cell for when prisoners are coming to attend court. Okay? All in one location.
Right. But you see, I was saying that I wanted to be fair to the government. And while you were saying it would cost you $31 million, I mean, we have to accept that cost of material and everything has gone up. So I want to be fair to them by doubling your cost to say, I would expect it would probably cost $60 million now. That is still a far cry from that exorbitant amount that I'm hearing.
So I can't, I like your logic and I like your generosity, but sadly, you can't do that.
Because the
there's
cost
no way
of
that is going to double
the
in
cost
cost.
of construction, the highest you would say.
Just so we know that we're talking about, the document that we're quoting is the contract between the NIPRO and the developers.
Right.
Okay? So that was about to be signed. In fact, I'm convinced that what the government did is the deal that we had put together with NIPRO and NIC, they just, when we came in, went and used that same model for the Gros Islet station, which we were already proceeding. Now, what's funny is that we were intending to do the Gros Islet very similarly to how they were going to do the halls of justice. Okay? We had already decided to move. We were going to rent the building by the Star. The Star building had been sold to another company.
Right.
We bought the printer equipment to leave the printer equipment there, and then the building next to it was going to be a police temporarily until we could have built the new facility. But what the government did is they just took that same financing deal from NIPRO and NIC and applied it to the Gros Islet police station, and now have gone with this new deal with a dedicated halls of justice, right? And to be fair with them, right, the halls of justice they're proposing is to put all the courthouses under one roof. And the question is the practicality of that, because what we've not discussed, do people really understand what 120,000 square feet of a building is? So the Daher Mall is just over 100,000 square feet. Okay? So just think of the Daher Mall being in Constitution Park. And ask yourself.
Already, I was told that the building will be 4 stories.
Okay,
So-
Daher Mall is 3.
Yeah.
Right? It's still a massive building.
Right.
It is as big as OKEU.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it in context.
Right.
Right? I'm trying to get confirmation as to, I don't know if you know, Guy, how big is the Bank of Saint Lucian? And how big the financial center is. But I guarantee you that this building is substantially bigger than both of those buildings. Right? So the question is, even the logic of the practicality of putting a building of that size, and then now people would have a greater appreciation. If you're going to go up 4 stories on a building of that size, the need for the piling, because everybody knows that when you dig in cast trees, you get water very fast. The vibrations of putting the piling in is the equivalent of an earthquake. Okay? So I personally, Alan Chastanet, have a difficulty with the idea of building a building on Constitution Park that's going to shadow. It's going to make the church look like nothing. It's going to cast a huge shadow over the church. And you're going to bring unnecessary congestion in a road network that is already suffering. Let's compare that very quickly to the vision plan of Sir John. Right. Sir John, in 2008, came out with a plan that showed break down the Printry, break down the Parliament, and break down the courthouse. The courthouse is already not functioning. The Parliament, I'm very happy to hear Kenny Anthony finally agree Parliament building has to go, and this government has also agreed now the printery has to go.
Right.
The difference with our plan was, or Sir John's plan, was not to build anything and to leave it as a green space open. So it means, imagine when you're driving into town, the first building that you were going to see,
It's the cathedral.
the cathedral.
Yeah.
Okay? And then remember, the Ballas-Needham report and even Sir John's report spoke about moving all the containers out from Prince Alfred Basin to cul-de-sac and put buildings down there. The CDC buildings have to be relocated. Okay? We were working on a plan to put them up at Mount Pleasant, to put apartments, etc. So they would still be in the same constituency. And we have to be on, in this country, on a much faster pace to providing housing for people.
Yes.
But that CDC land was to become now the new government center. So that you're now making Castries an attractive place. We already were in the process of upgrading the Castries market. So here it is that this government is proposing to increase the capacity of the cruise ships into Castries, right? And yet they're going to make Castries even more congested. It doesn't make sense. And again, I want us to understand, just take the Daher Mall and put it at Constitution Park. Take a building the size of OKEU and put it at Constitution Park. Just from a layman perspective, does that make sense?
Okay, but you're talking about size now. So I'm trying to visualize it. So that is massive, I must say. So that justifies the high price then?
Not at all.
No.
No,
Because even at, sorry, even at the 120,000, so we only found out about 120,000 square feet
Right.
yesterday when John Peters called up.
Right.
And let me just say this about John Peters. I'm disappointed that John Peters would not have clarified his very clear conflict of interest in calling the talk show. Okay, why? He's an employee of NH. Okay?
He's a director in a company.
He is a director of the holding company of NH. He is associated to the government because he's chairman of National Housing. Okay? Before the elections, he became a critic of the Rodney Bay Road. He became, all of a sudden, a self-appointed expert on St. Jude's. And let's not in any way minimize what John Peters said. He said that St. Jude could be completed for less than $10 million.
Between 5 and 20.
Okay? All it needed was chemical and some paint.
I think it was
Alva.
Alva.
No,
Baptiste who said-
John Peters was also part of that. That this was a simple process and that we were fooling the people. He then got the opportunity, because you can say, okay, well, he didn't have access to all the information.
Right.
He became part of the group that reviewed St. Jude's. Okay? So he had an opportunity to clarify himself there. Here it is today that this government now wants to go and spend $265 million on the old building. 3 years have gone by. No work has taken place. So if I am to say that this man has integrity, that went out the window. Can I believe honestly that he can call up a radio show and speak objectively about this project? He is protecting his boss. He's protecting his own company. And the question is, if in fact that he is so integral, he should have reeled up at the fact that local media was not provided with the information. That the information that was given out through an edited piece by the government lacked so much information. He was a former chief engineer. How is it that he would not want to tell us what the rent is going to be? And then to call up the show last night and say, oh, it's not 33,000 square feet. Now remember, the article came out in The Guardian. I specifically waited a couple of days to see if anybody amended it. So sometimes a reporter gets the number right, wrong, you call up and they come out and they do a retraction or they fix it. Nothing of the sort. Nobody in the article ever said it was 120,000 square feet. It was very clear in the article that the building was 33,000 square feet, so much so they repeated it more than once. So John Peters comes out and says it's 120,000 square feet. Okay, if we want to believe John, 120,000 square feet still comes out at close to $1,400 a square foot for the construction. which is still 3 times the amount of any other building in St. Lucia. The same John Peters and other persons criticized this gentleman by saying St. Jude's was $800 a square foot. And that was outrageous. A hospital, you know. Right?
Okay, well, you see, that's where I wanted to go, because I heard Mr. Peters when he called Nancy's show yesterday to clarify that, in fact, the 33,000 square feet was the footprint, meaning my layman's understanding, the amount of land on the ground that was covered by the building.
Correct.
However, the square footage of the building would be all the floor space that you have. So if you have 10 stories, then you have, more than just the 33. It could possibly even be 33 multiplied by 10, or even by more than 10, because some floors can be even wider than the square footage on the ground. But, and he indicated by giving those figures what it meant, that the calculations we were making for the cost per square foot for the construction of the building was off, because the square footage was much more than the footprint. And I understand that. I, as a layman, also understand that the cost per square foot can vary. Because obviously, Guy, if you have vinyl tiles on your floor, I have golden tiles on my floor, my square footage would be yours, more than yours. And the leader of the opposition just mentioned a while ago that if you have a building for a specific purpose, like a hospital, the square footage would be more. But there is a limit. The cost per square footage, sorry, would be more. But there is a limit, I'm sure, irrespective of whether it's a palace you're building, and we have had other buildings built for purpose, like the hospital and so on in St. Lucia. Have we ever gotten to $1,000 per square foot for any building in this country? That is what I want to know.
In this case, 1,400.
1,400, right?
Not that I'm aware of, but let me just add some more to what that discussion is. You see, as an engineer, you would expect Mr. Peters to come and give a simple breakdown. Now, the footprint of a building can also be the full size of the building.
Could be, yes.
There are 2 ways to interpret the footprint. So, if I'm building a warehouse, single floor building, the footprint of the building is the size of the building.
Right.
There's nothing above it. Now, I may be able to double my space inside by putting a mezzanine floor inside the building. That is not reflected as part of the square footage of the building. So I may have a 10,000 square foot warehouse, but I may create another 8,000 square feet on the inside.
I don't want us to get complicated. Let's keep this very, very simple. Let me just keep this simple. The size of the halls of justice on the plan that we had happened to be 33,000 square feet. Okay?
Yeah.
So is it unreasonable to believe that a courthouse can take 33,000? No.
It's not here.
Okay? Now you're telling us that you're going to build a courthouse that's 4 times that size.
But here's where this gets complicated. Because Mr. Elias said in the article that there are 6 courthouses operated by the government of St. Lucia, and that all of these courthouses are going to be brought into the one building. And that is what we were talking about, the safety, the security. So imagine you have a parent-child relationship that, or an adoption, something that you are dealing with, and you're going into the same building with a high-profile murder case or drug case or something, with all the people in the same block, the same building. I mean, this is, I don't know whether St. Lucians are understanding that this is a building that's going to be there for the next 50 years. So we're talking about 2075. You expect, because what's the lifespan of a building like this? And that is what we are saying. What are the projections? What foresight do we have of where criminal activity is going? What high-profile matters you would have to deal with? And why would you want in this day and age to put family court, to put a juvenile court, everything in the same area that you deal in
So if I can
with your
summarize,
high profile?
right? Because he's 100% right. So there's different contexts in which you can look at this deal. From a cost perspective, the most important number that we need to know that nobody's provided any commentary on. What is the rent that Justice is going to pay? If the building is 33,000 square feet and we know it's going to cost $166 million without the financing, it means that the rent is going to be close to $34 a month. If the
$34,000.
Huh?
$34,000.
No, $34 a square foot.
Per square foot. Okay.
A month.
All
Now,
right,
you used to be in public service.
Right, yes.
You ever remember government in Saint Lucian paying $34 a square foot a
No,
month?
certainly not.
And I would just want to say, we have to bring it down to what this is going to cost the taxpayers of this country. Forget about the mumbo jumbo. What is the rent going to be?
Okay.
If it is 120,000 square feet, then it means the rent is going to be almost $11 a square foot. Either way you want to cut it, it's a very high rent. And that rent does not include the finance cost. That's the point we keep on saying. So if this government wants to be transparent and accountable and stop the speculation, tell us, how much is the Ministry of Justice going to have to pay in rent for this building?
Okay, now we have come to the end of the first segment, but in the second segment, we will complete this discussion and then we'll move into the GPH matter. But you have touched on what it is that actually concerns the citizens of St. Lucia. At the end of the day, we are the ones paying. How much will it cost us? What is the rent and overall cost, whether it is reasonable or outrageous, how much we are paying per square foot? And we will deal with that in the next segment. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned and we will be back for the next segment where we will discuss this and GPH in further detail. Thank you.
J. Pierre says that all state funds should go into the consolidated fund. Here are some examples of Philip J. Pierre's hypocrisy. As we speak, work on the rehabilitation of the Millennium Highway is ongoing. This project is financed by the Caribbean Development Bank. CDB pays the contractor for the Millennium Highway directly. The funds do not go into the consolidated fund. Philip J. Pierre also happens to be the current chairman of CDB. Why aren't the funds going into the consolidated fund if the practice is so unusual as he makes it out to be? Funds from St. Lucia's Citizenship by Investment program also do not go into the consolidated fund. In 2022, the government of St. Lucia collected a whopping $51 million US from the Citizenship by Investment program. Not 1 cent was put into the consolidated fund. What have they done with all this money? Why isn't it going into the consolidated fund? The same contractor that Philip J. Pierre is accusing of facilitating corruption was just awarded a major contract for the new air traffic control tower at Huanora International Airport, and payments will go directly to their account in Panama. In other words, this means that money is not coming into the consolidated fund. Why would a prime minister deliberately spread propaganda and misinformation regarding a practice he follows himself? Why the hypocrisy? What is Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre trying to distract you from? We can't trust Pierre.
When you see, just looking at Chastanet's demeanor and the way he does things in the House of Assembly, you can see the effect of a slave driver. And he wants anything that he says must go.
That's correct.
Yes, the superior attitude.
A superior kind of attitude.
Dictatorial attitude.
Yeah, the dictatorial attitude. But more than that, it is in himself, it is himself as a fucking slave master, as far as I'm concerned. Now, you know,
language.
You know that I'm a man that
Slip of the tongue.
Yes, slip of the tongue.
You know that I'm a man that hates the house slaves.
Yes.
You see,
Yes.
I got into trouble particularly with Rick Wayne when I was doing the Telecommunications Act, and I called a certain person a house slave because she was acting just like a house slave on behalf of Cable and Wireless. So what you have there now in Saint Lucia is a slave master with a whole set of house slaves in the United Workers' Party.
Yeah, but the house slaves need to understand that when they see the colonial master dress, they too much dress the same way. You can't have shoes that have cramps all over while she has a brand new one.
I said something on your show some time ago, and it went viral. I will say the same thing again. Chastanet is two soft foot that need to be amputated out of Saint Lucia politics. Okay?
All right.
Chastanet is what you call I would like to wake up one morning to hear that Chastanet went to sleep and he never wake up.
Oh my God.
You got to love your brother, regardless to his color. We all have one father. Oh, stop the hatred. Stop it now. I said to stop the hatred. Stop somehow. Please stop the hatred.
Viewers and listeners, welcome back to a round table where we have with us the Honorable Alan Chastanet and the Deputy Political Leader Guy Joseph. And we were discussing in the first segment the halls of justice. What I want to complete that discussion now and then for us to move on to GPH. But to my mind, gentlemen, what I really want to deal with as a layperson, as far as what I think concerns most citizens of St. Lucia, is whether there is an injustice to the people of St. Lucia in the construction of the halls of justice. How much does it cost us? Has our government, has our Prime Minister told us what the rent will be? Because in effect, the rent will be the quarterly or monthly repayment of the financing that is being provided, which means the payment of the loan. And at the end of the day, when we have repaid that loan, we need to know how much it is that we paid per square foot of that building. That is very important. I am hearing figures of 133,000 square feet is the footprint, 126,000 square feet, which is the square footage of the entire building. And I'm hearing figures of 143 million, 165 million. How much does it cost us? And if my math serves me well, in any case, when I work it out per square foot, we are paying more than $1,000 per square foot. Is that reasonable? Gentlemen, please come in.
That is far from being reasonable, and I will add to what you have said by saying the information that Mr. Elias went and gave out in Trinidad, that was the responsibility of the government of St. Lucia to give much more information to the people of St. Lucia. Now, why would the government be so secretive? If this was good for the people of St. Lucia, we know the Labour Party, how they operate. We know the Labour Party administration. They make a lot of noise about things they believe that are good. You see, the secrecy associated with that should be a red flag for all St. Lucians. Now, coming down to the square footage, Mr. Peters has said something. Mr. Peters' words means nothing to me. We want to see the dotted line. We want to see who signed. We want to see what we are getting for the money that is being paid. Because don't tell me that you've gone into a sword turning ceremony and you have nothing ready to present to the people of St. Lucia to tell them, look here, this is the square footage of the building. Because why would, and is it a coincidence that the same footprint of the courthouse or the same square footage, let me not use footprint, the same square footage of the courthouse in that we were doing as the UWP administration is the same footprint of the building that they are talking about. So is that a copy over of what was there at more than double the price? Then the other question, if I am to take Mr. John Peters at his word.
Sorry, you're saying double the price. That's not true. Because we were building a police headquarters and the courthouse for $31 million.
Yes.
They're proposing only
a courthouse.
Only the courthouse, right, for $60 million.
For 60 million. But I'm looking at square footage. I'm
Okay,
looking
so
at,
you're talking US dollars here now?
Yes.
yes,
31 million US,
US
as
dollars.
opposed to 61 million US.
US.
$31 million US was
right.
to have a courthouse, 6
right.
courts,
Yeah.
and a police headquarters.
Right.
And the custody suite.
And the infrastructure for the integration,
Yeah.
plus parking,
Right.
right? This is only, the building that they're proposing, they're saying is only for the halls of justice.
So
And
Saint Lucian,
the irony here is, and the question marks is, we were putting in 6 courts, they're proposing to put in 6 courts.
right.
6 courthouses.
Okay, so viewers,
ju-
just
ju-
before you continue, viewers, it means that we would be paying less than $100 million for the courthouse proposed, the halls of justice proposed by the United Workers' Party, but now you are paying over 160 million with the Saint Lucian Labour Party. That is in EC dollars. I just wanted to make that clear.
for less facilities.
Right.
You may have more square footage, but you have less facilities.
But we don't know.
Well, and we only sometimes I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but sometimes it just don't add up. So going back to what your original question on the price per square foot, whether we are getting value for money, there's no way anybody can convince any quantity surveyor in St. Lucia today, and I dare say a member of the parliament in the person of Mr. Henry found it exorbitant that the price of St. Jude was coming at about $800 a square foot. And mind you, he underestimated the size of the St. Jude building by almost 50,000 square feet to arrive at that price. And it is in Hansard in Parliament that he was highlighting that buildings should not be costing this kind of money in this country today as a qualified quantity surveyor.
I have to interrupt you here. I have to say this on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. When this current government was in opposition, because of the information that the former administration provided, they were in a position, even at times erroneously, to provide information on square footage, and they made it a business to provide information on square footage as to what it would cost you. I have heard them give you information on how much you pay per mile of road. Today, you are the government of St. Lucia, directly accountable and responsible to the people of St. Lucia. Why is it that you're not providing us with the information? We want to know. It is our money. It is our halls of justice. We are the ones directly paying for it. It is our tax dollar. By the way, with the amount of taxes that you're charging us, okay, the tax gouging that you're doing, we want to know where our monies are going. Tell us what is the square footage and how much per square foot this is costing us. We want to know how much in rent that we are paying as a repayment for the loan. I just wanted
So
to
let me just to give a comparison really quickly, right? Because he triggered my memory here. Dyer Mall,
Right,
77,000 square feet.
right.
Okay, they said all they wanted to see and everything else. At the end of the day, it's $4 a square foot in rent
That's right.
for 15 years. And at the end of the 15 years, the same bolt arrangement, the 77,000 square feet is transferred back to the government.
$4.
Okay?
Right.
So the dollar thing and the transfer, that the Ministry of Communications infrastructure
Yes.
was done the same way. Okay? The financial center, all kinds of buildings. So here's the rent. After
But the difference, leader, is that NIPRO was the one doing these projects.
Correct.
And the profits made from these projects was
To the people
going
of Saint Lucia.
back to the pensioners of this country.
Correct.
Now, who is going to make the profit on this building? NH, Trinidadian contractors, Trinidadian manufacturers, and the company itself, which is a Trinidadian-based company, the bank, which is a Trinidadian-based bank. So all the profits from this, nothing remains in Saint Lucia.
And
everything is going back to Trinidad.
I too read the article in the interview with the chairman, Mr. Elias, and it concerned me when I heard that equipment will be sent to St. Lucia from Trinidad.
And he said he might
use some equipment from St. Lucia. And he also indicated that manufacturers in Trinidad
will
benefit in terms of things like PVC pipes and all of that. So I'm saying to you, St. Lucians, those of you who are in business, those of you in manufacturing, those of you who have heavy equipment, this is a project that could have benefited you directly and benefited me indirectly, because I'm not into construction, but the business that I'm in, when you who are in construction make money, you spend money in my business. So don't think it doesn't concern and put into all of us.
Let me say this.
Yes.
At a previous show, you and I did a press conference,
Right.
and I spoke about fraud. Right? What did I say that fraud was? The deliberate intention to deceive for personal benefit. Okay?
Right.
So here it is that clearly we can say there was an intention to deceive. The emphasis on the dollar getting back the building. Okay? You had the chairman of NIC, you had the managing director of NIPRO. What's their involvement in this project? But they were made to believe that there was some involvement because all of a sudden you saw them standing there.
That's right.
There's no involvement, okay? And then information that would allow us to determine the value of what we're getting by way of how much we're going to have to pay in rent.
And that is the
what
relevant
the square-
information.
None of that is, okay, so we now know, I'm satisfied that there was an intention to deceive all of us as to what the truth was. The question is, now you have to ask, who's benefiting?
Correct.
Right? So when you go and pay 2 times, 3 times the price of something, it means that there's going to be profit. Where's that profit going? Okay?
Yeah.
How is it that this was not put out to bid?
Now,
And to add to this,
I don't mind if NIPRO got the contract and NIC was doing the financing and you decided not to go, because that has been the norm.
Right.
But when you are now going to have a foreign entity who has a vested interest to maximize the profit and also the benefit for Trinidad, nothing against Trinidadians, okay? But this is taxpayers' money. The money should be going to support our local contractors. I have to ask you the question, do you believe that there were local contractors that could have done this bolt? Meaning gone to local banks and gotten the money and also had the capacity to provide the design and to construct this building.
St. Jude is a typical example. St. Jude is a 220,000 square feet building. Built hurricane resistant, earthquake resistant, okay? And it was all done by local contractors. So, what is in a 120,000 square feet building? Tell me which building is.
So do you think that Reno Gujada can do this project?
I think Reno could do the project. I think Jameson could do the project. I think Fresh Start could do the project. Blueprint. There are so many contractors in St. Lucia. I mean, look at it. The Sandals properties, who's building them?
now, I'm listening to you all here. But gentlemen, these are the people who told me that the former administration believed in foreigners, were empowering foreigners, were bringing in foreigners, preferred foreigners. And I'm hearing you talking about them now in terms of what they're actually doing. And you're saying that what could be done by St. Lucians, and those millions would have stayed there. And even if we are paying exorbitant amounts per square foot, at least I would have the solace of saying that some of that money will come back to us. If, let's say it was NIC.
Let me give you other examples of
Mm-hmm.
contractors who could have built that project. Let's take the World Bank project. World Bank projects are held to a very high standard. Who just built the school block in Mikud? CPAL. We were able to do over $6 million worth of work in repairing. And that's what I tell them to make the comparison. We were able to convert the old VH hospital into a modern respiratory facility with a local contractor,
in the middle of COVID.
In the middle of COVID. We have a Trinidadian company coming here. And after Mr. Elias got all his benefits, we'll look at...
So he did the Bank of Saint Lucian building. He did the financial center building.
The car park.
He also did the Dyer Mall,
Yeah.
but that was under the private stuff. So I'm not going to here to demean his work. The difference is the money is coming from our state. When they built the financial center building, I remember being very upset that NH got the contract.
We were in cabinet and we were opposed to NIC money being used with a Trinidadian company where the profits, and that is the missing link for Saint Lucians. You see, if I pay an extra $5 for something and I know it's going to support the pensioners of this country, I can stomach that, even if it's not fair. But you can say, at the end of the day,
You get back some of it.
the people of Saint Lucia benefit from it. But all of this cream that is on top of this is going back to Trinidad.
So we've denied a local contractor from being involved in a project of this scale.
That's right.
That when now a project like the West Coast Road comes, and that they have not had billings to a certain extent and are not allowed to bid, all of a sudden now they can bid. Not only here in Saint Lucia, they can bid elsewhere. Right? But why is this government intent on oppressing the contractors in this country and not being by their side? Why are financial institutions that are benefiting from taxpayers' monies, not helping local businesses from succeeding?
Well, you're asking...
Talking about footprint, Jameson just built a building down in Bexon there. The footprint, they want to talk about footprint, 22,000 square feet. Another 11,000 square feet. Who built the Rodney Bay Mall? Not local contractors. I mean,
Reno built my hotel.
So when
all the Bay Gardens properties. Right?
When Mr. Elias can go to Trinidad and say, oh, there's nobody in Saint Lucia with the financial capacity or the ability to build a building. I believe
the government says nothing.
Your government says nothing. A great insult to the quality and output of Saint Lucians. The final thing I want to say on this, Mr. John Peters should have clarified to the people of Saint Lucia how he could have been a director of a company that was just registered late last year in Saint Lucia, and be the special purpose vehicle through which the land is going to. So Mr. Peters, when you will call a talk show, tell us how you became a director of this company, how you ended up being the person or a director of the company in whose name that prime piece of property, including the old Ministry of Education building, is going into, and that this is going to be used as security.
Right. And look,
for raising the money.
This is the same gentleman who was the deputy chairman of National Housing and is currently the chairman of Housing, in what involved in his agency involved in one of the biggest scandals in Saint Lucia, where a prime piece of land, was sold without a bidding process to an entity we still don't know.
Okay, but gentlemen.
So I'm just saying to you, okay? All these things create speculation, right? There's no way, and I agree with him. that John Peters should be calling a show and not letting everybody know that he's a director, he's an employee, and that the land was being transferred into a company that he's a director of. Nobody knows how much money he's being paid.
Is the name of the company?
Yes.
Themas?
Themas. It's on the contract.
Okay, so let me just say this. I mean, we have to move on because there are other pressing matters we need to touch on, such as the next topic, GPH. But before we end, let me just say this. You gentlemen have asked some very pertinent questions that I have myself. I mean, I want to know how we arrived at this foreign company being the contractor. And how was that decision made? There are many questions as to how much is it that is going to cost us per square foot, how much is it we're going to repay, and why are the repayments so high? And you see, when there are so many questions, in the absence of information, okay, when people are left in the dark, we are left to speculate. When I speculate, I become suspicious, and I have more questions. That is what happens. And let us not forget, when it comes to construction, that is where the avenue for corruption can fester. That is where opportunities for corrupt activities take place. So I have many questions that I have to ask. If the cost is so high per square foot, when that is not the norm, who benefits from that extra cost that is being charged? Who does that redound to? That loss on the part of taxpayers in this country, the citizens of Saint Lucia, who benefits from that? Why is our government who is representing us so comfortable with those exploitative kind of exorbitant costs that is being leveled on us? Answer those questions. Give us the details we want to know. Now, the political leader of the opposition said that we are being deceived. I want to make the point that deception is not solely when people blatantly lie to you. Deception comes from the withholding of information as well. And the secrecy that surrounds every government project in this country, where everything is shrouded in a cloud of secrecy, it tells me that something is wrong. And the question is, what are you hiding at the cost of St. Lucians? Gentlemen, we can speak a lot more on the matter, and we will speak a lot more on the matter, because these are matters that St. Lucians have to become aware of and show more concern about. Another matter that we need more information on, that is of grave concern, and this one is a peeve to me. And I say so because I've been in government myself, and whether it is UWP or SLP, governments hardly undertake any enterprise that is profitable. When it comes to generating revenue, there is always an issue with government as compared to the private sector. But the one area I know where government is guaranteed to generate revenue, indirectly, of course, because SLASPA is a statutory body, our ports. When it comes to our ports, that's a sensitive asset of a state. When it comes to security, when it comes to generating revenue, when it comes to your economy, that is a sensitive asset. This is the last thing I would expect a government that is interested in the well-being of the country and its people would take and give away to a foreign company, the same foreigners you all were talking about and lambasting. You took our ports and gave it for the next 30 years with an option to renew for the next 10 years, which means 40 years in all. And with that, arrangements, deals that the port in Beaufort cannot be developed. Now, I must say to you gentlemen, you all were in the finance ministry, so to speak, economic affairs minister of finance. Nothing excited me, although I'm from the other end of St. Lucia, nothing excited me but more than the prospects of having a cruise port in Beaufort. Because though I'm not from Beaufort, I have no intention of moving down to Beaufort. I saw how even those of us in the north would benefit tremendously from that development. We would put Beaufort in a position where people would not have to rely on becoming gunslingers, becoming gangsters. They would have things productive economic activity to partake in. Gentlemen, I want your opinions, I want your views, I want your discussion on that sensitive subject of GPH. Tell me I'm wrong when I think that we have been sold out by our government to take our ports. And even now, we have scope for development in the area of tourism and all of that. Now we generate millions of dollars, that's guaranteed money, and we are handing that over to a foreign company. I want you to tell me that SLASPA is in no position to handle it, St. Lucians are incapable of doing it, and we had to get a foreign company to do it. Let me hear your views. Because I want to know, you are the government in waiting. I would hate to think that your government will want to go down that path and follow that road. I'm putting you on the spot now.
So if I can just maybe lead off for a second, because you've asked several questions.
Yes.
So let's go through a process of elimination.
That's right.
Does the government of Saint Lucia and SLASPA have the capacity to do what GPH is going to do? Okay? So let's look at historically. We're talking about that they're going to extend the northern wharf, which is exactly the same extension that was done at Point Seraphim. Strengthen the berth, and then put some dolphins so that you can tidal bigger ships. It's exactly what's going to take place. So SLASPA did it at Point Seraphim. 2006, 2007? Am I right? Or was it just recently?
Yeah, recently.
2015, 2016, that project was completed. Okay? Saint Lucia was the pioneer in cruise tourism. Did you know that? The pioneer. Saint Lucia was the first country in the southern part of the Caribbean, and I dare say anywhere in the Caribbean, that built a dedicated facility for cruise ships. Point Seraphim. I was on that board when it was NDC. Leslie Clark.
And GPH was part of that?
No. Okay.
I mean, I have to ask those questions. That's ridiculous.
And in fact, when Sir John built it, he had not negotiated a fee with the cruise ships. That became the famous fight, right? Because he wanted to increase it to $1, and they pulled out because of the dollar. And eventually, St. Lucia has gotten it to where now the head tax is $6.50. St. Lucia. Why?
Now,
because 90% of the cruise ship capacity in the world is three companies.
This is too important. I'm looking at it from a layman's point of view as St. Lucian. I want to know what you just said there, what it means. The head tax is how much you said?
Today it's $6.50.
What is the head tax?
The head tax is the amount of money that the cruise ship pays
per passenger.
To
St. Lucia. So if 1 million passengers come to St. Lucia, we get $6 million.
$6.5 million.
6.5 million.
US, huh?
Okay.
Okay, now that was negotiated, that started at zero all the way back in 1991 and has made it up to 650. Okay? So does St. Lucia have the capacity to negotiate with the cruise lines? Yes, it's only 3 companies. Right, when we had our inaugural, right, the 3 companies were here.
Yeah.
You can just go up to Miami, you can meet them anytime. I mean, Minister Joseph and I, when Carnival Cruise Lines was threatening to pull out a ship, we flew up to Miami and sat in the lobby, met with the gentleman, and within 6 hours we were able to resolve the problem. So that's not, I don't consider myself to be overly special. These people are not hiding from anybody. You know who they are. So GPH is going to go and negotiate with the same people because there's no new cruise ship companies to come to St. Lucia. Right? So St. Lucia does not only have the capacity, St. Lucia has done it. You're telling me who built the first Vendors Arcade? Who built Hummingbird Beach? Who built the dock in Soufriere? All of that was done by St. Lucians. Okay, so there's nothing that in the proposal that I've seen that defies gravity. That there's something that's so unique that we can't do. Okay?
But you see, forgive me for the questions I'm going to ask you, because it's a secret deal that I am not privy to. So GPH will repair Because that's what they're going to do. Or let's say build some new facilities.
They're going to
extend our port.
extend the
Good.
dock at
Right.
the Northern Wharf
Right.
to
Operate.
allow a Qantas class ship to
Right.
come in.
And they're going to operate it, but we're going to continue to get our 650 or more. We're going to continue to get that.
Now you see, I like how you're thinking. So we have to determine whether this is a good deal. So the government of St. Lucia has given GPH the concession. What does that mean? They've given them the rights to all of the revenue. So the question I'm asking,
Including the head tax?
all of the head tax. So not only have they given them the $6.50, they've given them the ability that any increases that they're going to have up until $12 that they can keep. So that's what we're saying. So if the head tax goes to $10, which it will, because we had already negotiated that. The cruise lines coming out of COVID had already agreed to go to $10. In fact, the head tax that we had agreed to at the, the facility we were building in Viewfort was even more than the $10, okay? So there's nothing new that GPH is gonna bring, but let's just keep it at $6.50. So I don't understand why the government would have given GPH the $6.50. Because the cost of extending the dock is $20 million. Okay? SLASPA had the ability of borrowing the money,
Yes.
okay, and repaying it itself, even at the $6.50, but even more so at $10. Okay? So you're talking about if the cost of the construction, I'm going to say even $40 million, not even 20, $40 million. Over the 40 years is $1.3 million a year. And at the 650, you're going to be at 1 million passengers just now. So let's just, because we were at 800,000 before 2019. Okay? 1 million, just for easy calculations.
Yeah.
So it means you were going to make $6.5 million, and your cost was going to be 1.3 million. Okay? And that's at $40 million worth of expenditure. So SLASPA had the financial wherewithal to do it. And to Guy's previous point is, where did the profits go? To SLASPA.
Right.
Which means to the people of St. Lucia, because it's an asset of the people of St. Lucia. Who is being employed? Who is the board of directors? Who is in control of everything? Us. Now, if in fact that they came and they said, okay, GPH is going to continue to pay us the $6.50. Okay? We're going to let them now make the investment to extend the berth and to fix up all of these facilities. And any money that they're going to make after the $6.50, they're going to get 70% and we're going to get 30%. But no, and that's why we're saying, so SLASPA has given away potentially, if you get 1 million passengers at $10, 400 million US dollars. They've just had it.
I have to interrupt you here. Let's be fair to SLASPA. Is it SLASPA who did that?
No.
So it has been taken away from SLASPA.
Yes, but I want him to provide comment on that.
And given to a foreign company.
Yes, but he.
And I'm saying I want to hear from SLASPA.
Right. That's what the point he's making, and I want to make that point.
Okay.
He has called out the board of directors of SLASPA.
Okay.
At the end of the day, that they're appointed. Once they're appointed, they are to act independently in the best interest of SLASPA.
Right.
Okay? There's no way that any one of those board of directors, the director of finance, the PS of infrastructure, and some of the private sector people on that board, could ever convince me, I dare say anybody in St. Lucia, right, that this is a good deal.
Now what I would expect from a board of people who serve at the level of SLASPA is that if you cannot do otherwise, you remove yourself from the process. Resign. How can you? Because you know what the government is going to say. SLASPA, even if they were directed by the cabinet, and the cabinet of ministers cannot direct the board of SLASPA, because this is a board that is appointed. They may take certain directives. You know, these are the same people in opposition who criticize us for the airport development project. where the people were bringing in their own money, building the airport. We were paying them. They were not, when we put on the head tax, we were not giving it to them. The head tax belonged to Saint Lucia, and we were paying for the work being done. Here is what is happening now. And nobody, no one on the board of SLASPA has said a word. So your oath of secrecy was to sell out Saint Lucia? And if a government...
Well, there's a saying that silence means consent.
Exactly.
And I would hate to think that the board of directors consented to that. I would hate to think so.
And that
so
is why,
I would like to hear
why I have asked that the names of everybody on the board of SLASPA who was involved in selling out, because they can tell me it's a lease for 40 years. That is a sellout. You have sold our money. We need to understand this, you know. You have sold money. You have sold $400 million for $40 million.
So
that is what the government and SLASPA has done.
Even the $40 million is not really $40 million, because the $40 million is being paid out of the money that we gave them. So it's like saying to a man, go buy a car, okay? You can have the car, and I will pay the money for your lease for the car. Okay? So what Guy is saying is 100% correct, and that's why I wanted to break it down into two parts. We are already earning $6.5 million a year.
Right.
Already. If GPH came in tomorrow, they would have to do nothing, and they get the 6.5 million for the 40 years.
But here's the bigger problem. I was having a discussion with some people from Grenada. Are you aware that Grenada is now going to get some home porting? Because what we were negotiating by now, if the government had not changed, the port would have been completed in Viewfort.
And the airport.
The airport would have been completed. We would be having home porting. And here is the figure that people are missing out.
Just slow down a little. You see, I know what you mean by home porting, and I understand the benefits of home porting, but I want my listeners to know.
Okay, so home porting means
home porting?
That the ships will come here practically empty. And the bulk of the passengers will fly from different places to board the ship.
So they will be
here.
catching the boat here in Saint Lucia.
Yes. The ship will go on the tour of the islands and return to Saint Lucia.
Okay.
And these people will disembark the ship to board a plane. They most likely will spend a night in a hotel, different places.
Some will.
Some of them.
10 or 15% of them would either stay before
overnight,
or
while they're here, they eat,
now,
they need taxis.
Now here is no, I'm not even concerned about that. Because I'm not even concerned so much on the 650 that we were making. Every passenger, and we were looking at a minimum of maybe 75,000 passengers boarding the ship over a year, in a year's period in Saint Lucia. You are going to make $98. SLASPA was going to be making $98 US departure tax on each one of these passengers who flew in to board the ship in Saint Lucia. When you begin to do the math on this and realize how many millions of dollars of revenue that could go to education, to fixing your roads, to improving healthcare in Saint Lucia, to improve security, that we have given up to GPH.
And you wouldn't have to borrow. That would be money making.
You know, Saint Lucia.
Wait a second. And you know what's more frustrating? Is now that you see what's happening in Grenada, and also home porting in Antigua, expanded home porting in Barbados. We knew where that was going.
Right.
Okay? Why? Because it's more difficult now for people to enter into the U.S. for immigration purposes.
That's right.
So what they wanted to do was to get places where it was international.
You can take the boat.
So Italians, Middle Eastern, all these other nationalities who want to come on a cruise ship, they can catch the ship without having to go to get a U.S. visa, which is very difficult.
Right.
Okay?
And it would improve your airlift.
Okay, but wait, I want to say how far-sighted. That is a big reason why we changed the design of the international airport, to move the terminal to a location where we would not have to demolish the existing building. Because under the old design, the building was being built in, the new terminal was being built in a car park. And the existing building would have to be demolished. We said, hey, business is going too well. Let's move it slightly over. Don't demolish that building. And that building now would have become a dedicated facility for the cruise ships. So what was going to happen? The charter flights would arrive. The people would get off the plane and go into that old terminal. They would check into their cabins, okay, and identify their bags, and everything then was being sent to the ship, all in a bond, okay? The cruise lines were salivating, not only at the proximity of the airport to where the cruise ship was, but having that facility. No one else has that facility. This government has come in. All the financing was done. All the negotiations were done. Yes? We had a public where we had the three major cruise lines agreeing to work with each other. The first time in the history of the Caribbean that the big three agreed to do a project collectively together, because they understood how meaningful this would be. This government comes in, makes all kinds of stupid allegations. They have not been able to prove anything. Stop the international airport. Stop the home porting in the dock facility in Viewport, and now have come back here and given away 400 million $1 billion EC dollars in revenue to a company that is not. They're going to borrow the money from the Bank of Saint Lucia.
Saint Lucia, let me just explain something here quickly before we move on. You are saying that, your government, the United Workers' Party, was going to do this and going to do that. The difference is, Saint Lucia, vision. If your government does not have vision, they cannot see the merit and benefits of those kinds of moves. When you talk about the benefits, the spin-offs for St. Lucians, the government is more concerned about the money they will collect as departure taxes, as head taxes, and so on. But there are many other spin-offs for us. The taxi driver would benefit. The restaurant owner would benefit. There are little, even you who want to go on a cruise, you don't have to take a flight to catch the boat. You don't have to take a flight to come back home. These are all ancillary benefits that we're talking about. That would redound to the benefit. And you know what that would do to the economy of St. Lucia? But no. We have chosen a government instead who not only destroy those prospects, but has literally sold out. Now, I want to say something about the sellout. The gentleman here spoke about the money that has been given to a foreign entity. Your pot, your property, your prime property, your premium property, your pot in Soufrière and in Castries were also given away as well. Now, not only would you miss out on these opportunities, but you cannot do it for the next 40 years, because part of the deal is that wonderful opportunity that the gentleman just spoke of is off the table, because we agreed to give them our pot and our money, and in exchange, we are guaranteeing them that no development will take place in Viewport. You all heard that, people of the South?
So Mr. Moderator, Mr.
Yes.
Montoute,
Yes.
if my Prime Minister, who's seated here with me, Honorable Alan Chastanet, cannot proceed to build a new port in Viewport when we get into government, I don't know what we would do.
Well,
And
let me just say to you,
him.
Mr. Joseph, that when we St. Lucians make the change, it is for things to change.
So
I'm just serving your notice.
I want to implore the political leader to make his pronouncement and let GPH know whatever the agreement is, we will challenge it, we will do the necessaries, because Viewport must develop for St. Lucia to reach its potential.
You know, and the betrayal that we keep speaking of, Saint Lucians, you'll have to understand. This is the same government, when in opposition, made a song and dance about us, the United Workers' Party, giving away our patrimony, giving our properties to foreigners, when Cabot bought a private property that was in receivership, had nothing to do with the government. Okay, they bought it from the receivers. And they made a song and dance that we gave St. Lucia's patrimony to a foreign company. But now they took your pot that belongs to us.
And your revenue.
Okay? And your money that you're making from that pot, one of the few areas where you guaranteed to generate a certain amount of money. And they gave it to a foreigner. We are going to sit idly by and accept that? That cannot continue. That cannot happen. St. Lucians, we must on this one take a stand and stop this government. Gentlemen, I mean, this is very serious what I'm hearing. But at the end of the day, what can be done to remedy the situation? Because I know on account of this alone, St. Lucians should take a decision to remove this government, because God alone knows what next will be sold out, what next will be compromised. Gentlemen, ponder on this question. When we return, we want to conclude our discussion on GPH, and I want to touch a little on the economy. And you both are well placed to comment on the economy. Former Prime Minister, former Minister of Finance, Honorable Chastanet, former Minister of Economic Affairs. You're also former Minister of Infrastructure as well, Guy Joseph. The figures that I'm hearing all over the place, I would like your comments on it and to help explain to St. Lucians what these really mean. Viewers, stay tuned. When we come back, GPH and more coming your way. Thank you.
So the same car that Joycelyn, même Joycelyn, yeah. Karen, you Scadi, she have I'm not even going there again. You buy your place, you buy issue, you pay parent, you v'lò l'autre place encore. Ça y est, c'est où qui beau PCCC. Ça où est let avocat from Sarah Flood. Ça où est let avocat from Sarah Flood.
Projects. The government has provided us with very little information, leaving us to speculate, leaving us to be suspicious, leaving us to ask many questions. I am one who would like to believe when I hear you would, as Minister of Finance, Minister, former Minister of Infrastructure, directly involved with us. What do you know firsthand what obtained, how much revenue can be generated from such activities, for example, our ports. When I hear what is happening and I look at what the government is doing, I refuse to accept that the government is naive. I refuse to accept because it is because of stupidity. I refuse to accept that it's because it's not fair. Because we average solutions know that there is no merit, there is no justification, there is no common sense in what has taken place and what is going on. So there must be something else that is driving those decisions. I leave it to you. And again, I say, when it comes to infrastructure projects, with those kinds of operations and transactions, that is where wheeling and dealing can thrive. It is up to you. And if the government does not want us to speculate and surmise that that is what is going on, provide us with information. Why the secrecy? St. Lucians, it is not a fait accompli. You have a say in terms of what takes place in your country. And the same way you went and protested at Kazaba because Jack didn't want you to live on the beach, that's what the Labour Party made you believe. You have to protest against them, okay, for taking your pots and giving it to GPH. Okay? We cannot allow the wholesale of our prime assets, of our premium assets in this country, like we just saw happen under our governments. the government giving our us for the next 30 to 40 years to a foreign company to make all that money which could have come to this country and be down to the benefit of human hand. Gentlemen, I just want to sum up on this GPH.
Well, I can just sum up by highlighting on my end. If the reign of the Labour Party had not been interrupted by the times that the UWP came into government, today we will not own Wasco. Because the Labour Party was selling Wasco for $14 million. 1-4, not 4-0. Our airports, we will not own them because they were given a long-term deal. The only reason why it had not gone through was because the developer was asking for $60 to $65 a head. That we were able to interrupt and start a new program where we said we are going to develop our airport, we are going to keep our airport under the control of SLAS. The Labour Party came back into office and we were negotiating to develop our port ourselves and build a new port in Beaufort. What the Labour Party has done is given away our port and our money for 40 years. I want Saint Lucians to contemplate what we are saying there. And you are right, Mr. Montoute. What else is there for Labour to give away or to sell to a foreign entity in this country? And that sums up for me what they have done. We heard Emma say it's a secret deal on Soufrière. And we've been focusing on Castries. What will happen to the Soufrière Development Foundation? That is the primary support of the poor and vulnerable in Soufrière. What will happen to the main attractions like the Sulphur Springs? Will GPH say, well, we have to control the Sulphur Springs because everybody coming in on the cruise ship to go to the... We don't know what the secret deal is. What is it that... What arrangement did the parliamentary rep for Soufrière in the person of Emma? What special private secret deal did she make with GPH? The dollar that is collected for every passenger that docks in Soufrière that goes to the Soufrière Development Foundation, will that continue? Or will GPH determine who gets what? And these are the questions. So while we are focused on Castries and Port Castries, Soufrière and Beaufort has gotten a blow from that deal. Because Beaufort cannot be developed for 40 years. And we don't know what is going to happen to the Soufrière Development Foundation. So, what we are seeing is that every move by this Labour Party is to give away, is to be a seller. They have betrayed us and they are selling us out. And we need to take every step. And this is not a fight for UWP. This is a fight for every right-thinking Saint Lucian to say we cannot trust a government that every move it makes is to sell what the people of this country have. I believe that these fellas are planning this government. Maybe they don't want to live in Saint Lucia in the future. Maybe they want to go and get exiled some other country, get immunity and go and live in some other place. Because there's no right-thinking government that will give away so many vital assets in a country.
What say you, Mr. Political Leader of the opposition?
It's very difficult to fault anything that the guys just said. 100% correct. There's a pattern of behavior here where we're seeing not only in past times but even in more recent times where the government seems deliberately intending
to take monies and put them in the hands of a third party. So the CIP, the New Infrastructure Fund, money doesn't come into the CIP and going into the Economic Fund. The money is going to go into an escrow account outside of Saint Lucian. And another company that's not accountable to the taxpayers in this country, not accountable to the law of Saint Lucian, are going to choose to spend the money they want to. GPH, who've taken $400 million of revenue, put it into the hands of a third party, in which that party now can decide how to spend the money. We see that they've hired Thaddeus Antoine as their lawyer. We see that Lester Arnold has gotten the job as the CEO. He's the brother of Lance Arnold, the chairman, brother of the chairman of Invest Solution. Now, do I want to deprive the young man? I know he's a good guy. But the question is, why? He had a job at Nitro, a big job at Nitro. But you see, we can't question any of those things because the money doesn't belong to us anymore. They're not accountable to the people of this country anymore. When monies were taken, a guarantee was given to NLA outside of the statutory accounts outside of the consolidated accounts of Saint Lucian, and put on a board that is 100% appointed by cabinet, have no expertise in selecting contractors, is now going to. They came back to the Parliament a second time with the bill. They still can't tell you how much money is going to be spent. They cannot tell you who the contractors were. They can't tell you the process that was used to select the contractors. We're seeing now where NIC and NIPRO, agencies that we know to be ours, being bypassed. We don't even know how much rent is going to be paid. It has to be put into a third party who gets to select who the workers are going to be, who the suppliers are going to be. The man is already telling you that he's going to favor Trinidad, and it's taxpayers' money and Saint Lucian is paying for it. I expected him to say that he's going to be working with the government to make sure that Saint Lucian maximizes the output. But you see, that's when you put the money into a third person's hands. That's what this government is doing. It's guys, right? They want to do the same thing with Glasgow. They want to do the same thing with HIA Airport. So the question becomes, you ask the question, is it because that these people, this government, doesn't know? So I'm going to say this to you, because we're entering in the discussion about the economy. I was away. I did not get to present in the House. I intend to be able to make my findings public to do this. I did not get past the first speech. So this is the social and economic review.
Yes, and shall we go into what we've been told in the last budget debate? Let's do it briefly. We don't have much time left. I want to
social and economic review.
Yes.
Page, I even got into Roman numeral.
Yeah.
Okay? The page says that the economy grew, when you take inflation into consideration, by 2.2%.
No, let's put that in context. Is that impressive? I mean, out of this world? I mean,
that is the lowest growth rate in the OECS, far less the rest of the Caribbean.
Saint Lucian, the 2.2% growth that's just been revealed there makes us the worst performing economy in the OECS.
But then you go further down the page and it says public debt, the growth of public debt.
Right. Now stop. Before you go into the figure, I don't want to get the figures yet. Your government was accused of borrowing. There wasn't a term. They said every time you go to the parliament on a Tuesday, it was adequate, meaning it's Tuesday for borrowing. And he borrowed so much money. So I imagine the figure you're about to give me there now is going to be a really impressive figure because they've been there for 3 years. They would have brought down our debt to an extent, I imagine, that we can be proud of. What is our debt?
Well, that's a loaded question. Everybody knows that the debt to GDP went up because the GDP, the economy, contracted by 24%. We put in what was called the economic recovery plan, right?
Yeah, for COVID, yes.
And that economic recovery plan has become the model, and all the other countries in the Caribbean are now emulating. Open your doors back up for tourism and push construction. We're seeing St. Vincent doing it, we're seeing Grenada doing it, etc. right? In the first 2 years of that plan, the economy grew by 12 point something percent in the first year and close to 20% in the second year. No other country in the Caribbean even came close to those numbers.
So Guyana.
Okay, but Guyana never got affected by COVID.
I'm going to interrupt you again. Now, Saint Lucian, Guyana did even better than Saint Lucian because Guyana discovered something called oil, and that made all the difference. Saint Lucia was in second place because at the time we discovered someone called Chastanet. You are back downhill. Guyana continues to use the oil. If you're smart, you know what to do.
So the fact is that the debt to GDP, which was at 60%, the prudential level, and was going down because every year what we were doing, the amount of debt that we had was growing less than the economy. The economy was growing faster than the amount of debt. So the monies that we were investing were generating a return. Okay? After COVID and the first 2 years, the debt to GDP went from 91%, and with the recovery, went to 69%. And the goal was, if our administration was there, to continue that trend. The government has gone out of its way to say that this was a good budget. But just on this first page, the thing that catches my eye is that the economy grew by 2.2%, but the debt grew by 8.8%. Now let me put that in.
So that is 4 times.
It's growing 4 times
faster than your economy.
So let me give you an example. A vendor. I think some of them go to SNS to buy products, or wherever to buy a product, and then go and sell it. So when you have your growth at 2.2% and debt at 8.8%, it's 4 times. So this would be like a person going to SNS and buying an item for $4, and then going down to the market and selling it for $1. Okay? How long would the vendor stay in business? Okay? So for every $4 that that vendor invests in buying a product, okay, they're losing money. So when you have $4, you're supposed to get $5. You're supposed to get $6. Every vendor would know that. Any successful vendor would know, I have to get more money than I paid for it. Okay? What this report is showing is that the government is not getting a return on its investment. So for every $4 the government invested, it was only getting $1 in return. Okay? So we are going backwards. And the question is, where has the money gone? So if the vendor went to buy the product for $4 and sells it for $1, why? Maybe they overpaid for the item to begin with. It was not worth it. Would a vendor deliberately do that? Do you think vendors don't know what the price is going to be? They know. So what we're seeing, without me even going any further, that we are in serious trouble. Because it means that if the debt continues to grow faster than the economy, then what we're seeing this year, where the government just came to the House and asked permission to borrow money for bonds. And the shocking part was 7.5%. Now, let's go back in time, 2013. And the then Prime Minister Kenny Anthony said, something went wrong. Okay? And it got to the point where people's confidence in the economy had dwindled. Why? Because the debt was growing faster than the income. And it means that the government was now having to borrow money not to invest in capital projects, but having to borrow money to pay salaries. Once you get to that point, once you get to the point in your own household, right, where the monthly payments that you have, that you're borrowing money to pay the electricity bill, you're borrowing money to pay for your bus transportation, you're in trouble. Because that money that you're borrowing, where it is going in is not improving your potential of income.
if you're borrowing money to buy a backhoe, or you're borrowing money to go and open up a banana farm, or you're borrowing money to buy a bus, and you've got a peg, okay? So you only hope to make sure that the money that you've invested, that the money that you're going to get back on those investments is more, so that you're better off. But if you borrowed the money to get a bus, and you did not get a peg, and the bus is sitting there, and every month you're just paying the amount for the bus, and it's not generating any revenue. That is what this report is telling us, that the government is borrowing money, and what they're investing it in is not generating any return. Now, when you look at what is going on with the GPH, that the government has taken valuable money that can be used for free. When you make profit, that money belongs to you. You don't have to pay anything for it. Okay?
And institutions and well-being for
So when you're overpaying for roads, when you're using the wrong material on the roads and you have to go back and repair it again, and you're not getting the benefit of it.
When you're overpaying for your halls of justice.
When you're overpaying for your halls of justice. Okay? All of those things start adding up. So this is not about an opposition just complaining. This is saying, the report is saying it itself. And when the government speaks about a surplus in the budget, the surplus in the budget, the extra money that they're talking about, came from where? It came from tax gouging. They doubled the amount of money that they expected in excise tax. Because when the price of gas dropped internationally, instead of passing that savings on to the people of Saint Lucia by dropping the $16.50 to $14.95 or $14.50, they kept it and they kept the money for themselves. When the price of cooking gas went down, which they were subsidizing, instead of lowering the amount, they ended up reducing the amount of subsidy by $3, meaning that they made an extra $3 by not having to subsidize the gas. Okay? The second source of revenue was CIP. So money that they earn from CIP, which is our money, freehold money, is free money. Okay? And instead of investing that money in building the capacity of the country, they use that money to pay salaries. They use that money to pay recurring expenditure. So $100 million came from the CIP and went into the consolidated account to pay for recurrent expenditures rather than being investing in capital. Because they said to you, oh no, we brought the money in to pay debt, but the debt has gone up. It's not gone down. Okay?
So I think just to add, when you have 7.5%, I went to the bank most recently and I was told, well, if you're looking at a mortgage, we can give you a mortgage at 5.5%. So you can remember, so why is the government getting money at 7.5%? Now, here was the response from the government. That the 7.5% is the maximum ceiling that they have given. So if I know, as a lender, if I'm lending money to you, and I know that your ceiling is already 7.5%, you think I will come and offer you 6? When I know that you have already voted in your parliament that the maximum amount you can pay is 7.5%. I mean, which Minister of Finance would go and put that in and expect to go and negotiate at lower rates?
I can answer that. But even look at this, right, guy? I just did a quick calculation. Same first page. This year, no COVID. Global economy is recovering. Okay? Everything is moving in a broader. Tourism is back to 80% of what it was before. Government's tax revenue exceeds where we were in 2009. Right? No crisis. They borrowed $388 million. That's what the debt of the country increased by. In 1 year. Okay, that's the 8.8% increase.
I can ask a question there, just for a reason of putting things into perspective. During COVID, I mean, your government...
Wait, can I just say something? The irony is, they talked about infrastructure, so the pictures here are all physical infrastructure. They said this is the year of infrastructure. And as we said in the estimates, that the budget for infrastructure dropped by 50 million. So you have to ask yourself, where did the $388 million go? What did they use that money for?
You see, but I am also interested in seeing, because your perspective is important for me. Your government was in office and you were hit by this worldwide pandemic and a disaster. Economies were literally shut down and so on. You had no choice but to borrow more heavily than you normally did. Can you give us an indication of about how much you borrowed during COVID?
$340 or $350 million
During COVID.
during COVID.
But the figure you just gave me is more than enough.
Yeah, they borrowed more. Yeah, they borrowed more money this year than we borrowed
During COVID. Saint Lucians, I want you to hear that. And these are the people who got out, Madi Pete, we borrowed money, but we had no choice, but we had to. That was a crisis situation.
And the money went to pay salaries.
Exactly.
And I said as the Minister of Finance, not to cut you short, I said as the Minister of Finance, it's with a heavy heart. But we had no choice.
Right.
So with all this borrowing, our roads are in a bad condition. Our healthcare is bad. Our security is bad. And I dare say on this program, when the Prime Minister said about he's giving motorcycles and water skis, and these are requirements for World Cup.
He didn't do it for the people.
He didn't do it for the people.
Although I doubt his water skis they told him for World Cup.
I know it's jet ski. But I'm just saying, so going back to what the issue of the economy, there is a lack of regional confidence in the economy. And we spoke about tourism, which is one of the mainstays of the economy. Are you aware that Grenada, with a new prime minister, a young man who was there, at least our prime minister should have sought some advice from him. Because in 2023, Grenada had gone past its 2019 numbers of tourism. So it means that they had gone over the 100%, while we are still at 80%. And to add to that, in the first quarter of 2024, they are up by another 15 or 20% above the 2023 number, which was the highest number. And Saint Lucia is still trying to reach 100. The Labour Party is still trying to reach where we left it in 2019 prior to COVID. So there's no way this economy is going to perform. The government is overtaxing its people. We have seen exorbitant increases in bread, in bus fares, in goods and services. The 2.5%, we must not forget.
That's right.
The 2.5% continue to add up on everything that we are doing. So while the government is making extra taxes, we are getting poorer in the country. People cannot eat. That's the reality. Can you imagine? Let me give you a simple scenario of how wicked this government is. They cut the school transport subsidy by $300,000. So you heard they're giving preschool. So let me get Saint Lucian to understand. They said they are giving preschool $2,500. A one-time fee. 100 preschool, they're about 97 registered, but let's round it up to 100. That's 250,000. So they have already cut the school transport subsidy by 300. So when they give the preschools 250, the government has a net benefit of $50,000. And you know what? During that time, some children are unable to go to school because their bus fares have gone up, bread has gone up, and parents cannot afford to pay transport. How is that an economy working in the favor
that's a government
of Saint
who say
Lucian?
they're putting people first and that they're transparent and I don't know. If Saint Lucians are not seeing what is happening to them, then I don't know. And let me tell you, time is of the essence. Because our economy is being ruined. It is going down to the abyss, and we have to put a check on it because it can get to a point where it cannot be retrieved. And so when you look at the policies of the United Workers' Party, you look at the plans that they have in place, what they are advocating, it is about growing the economy, it is about providing for the people of Saint Lucia, it is about making life easier and making life better. We don't grow an economy by tax gouging. The kind of programs, projects, investments that we're looking at is what will bring about economic development and prosperity to Saint Lucia. Gentlemen, time is running out on us, and I will take this opportunity to give each of you a moment to just round up maybe about the economy or maybe about what we've spoken about before. But I just want to give you the time to round up. I must say, this discussion would have gone, as far as I'm concerned, forever, because it's very interesting, very pertinent. But you will be back on the roundtable period, so let's just do our wrapping up right now. I'll start with you first, Mr. Joseph.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to say to all Saint Lucians, let us pay attention to what is happening in our country. You may evaluate us just as politicians, but the information we are giving you, they are factual. You can fact check what we are saying. Not like the Prime Minister who said, fact check me, and when they checked him out, they realized that the information was not reliable. Our information is reliable. We are saying to you that the Labour Party has a track record of trying to sell out this country from under its people. They have not done anything to benefit us. They want us all to remain poor in this country. And we've given you the information. We do not welcome GPH into Saint Lucia. GPH, we want you to know you are not welcome. And when UWP gets back into office, we are going to revisit everything that has been done with you. We want you to know, we want Mr. Emil to know on that project that they are doing, we are going to revisit the rates. We are going to check out everything, because I believe UWP is going to be back in office before this is even completed. And I will end on this note by saying, how can Mr. Elias know to state in his article that the Prime Minister does not want debt to GDP to go up? That is why, or to increase, let me use the correct word that people can understand, to increase the debt. So he is anxious to get the project going, but he has chosen a board as if we are not going to pay. Whether you disguise that, whether you hide it, in whatever format you put it, the Saint Lucian taxpayer must still find the money in order to pay the debts that this government is accumulating. And the sooner we can remedy the situation by getting this government out of office, Saint Lucia will fare much better. I thank you.
Thank you. And now, leader of the opposition, political leader.
Thank you very much. Let me just continue the conversation. In 2020, we borrowed $356 million. In 2021, we borrowed $362 million. And in 2022, we borrowed $388 million. Now, how do you want to make that comparison? In 2016, we borrowed $100 million for the year. 2017, 140. 2019 and 18, we borrowed $116 million.
So in normal years, they are borrowing 3 times.
And that was a change. When the United Workers' Party came in, that's the change that we made. We became better managers of the economy, and we were making sure that we were investing money. So all the allegations of spending money and borrowing, the money that we were borrowing was going into the best interest of the people of this country. We were owning our airport. We were owning our seaport. We were expanding our services because the profit that he spoke about from those businesses now were contributing to the income of Saint Lucia. So what we were doing is we were funding ourselves, like what Sir John used to do. Sir John used to build schools out of extra money
He wouldn't borrow money to do that.
So I want to just clarify one quick one. Maybe you can highlight it. We grew the debt by that amount. Because they will tell you went to Parliament and you did this borrowing and that borrowing. So the figures given there is by the amount that the debt grew.
And how much you paid off.
Yes.
It's
So
the net.
it is important that, because when we give information, we want Saint Lucians to understand. The debt grew by 140, grew by 3 something during the COVID. But Labour Party in 1 year has grown the debt with no crisis, with them collecting more tax money than any period of time.
Correct.
And the services are the most lousy.
And 100 million from CIP.
They have grown the debt by over $380 million.
So I want to use another example. Is it a story came out yesterday that American Airlines is increasing flights to Saint Lucia from New York by 1 flight a week on Saturdays. But right next to it is that the American is also increasing and putting on a daily service from New York to Barbados. Now, that struck me because I remember that when we reopened the economy in 2021, the tourism, and I was told that I was a madman. And we were the only persons who believed that tourism. In 2021, it's a fact, Saint Lucia had more arrivals from the United States. More people came from the United States to Saint Lucia in that 1 year than total arrivals to Barbados. So we had 150,000 arrivals from the United States. And Barbados had a total of 144,000 arrivals. And we had a total of 200,000 arrivals in 2021.
Now we are in a reversal of that.
Today, we're going to see a reversal where Barbados is growing their U.S. arrivals.
Daily flights.
To a daily flight from New York.
Yeah, a weekly flight.
2 daily flights from Miami.
Yeah.
Okay? And they have the flights from Charlotte, etc. We had put Saint Lucia on the map. We got flights out of Texas, additional flights out of Chicago, 4 flights a week out of Newark. Okay? All of that is gone. And so, when I say to Saint Lucians that we are in trouble, we are in serious trouble. Even a vendor knows that if you buy something for $4, you have to get at least $5 return on it. Minimum. This government is investing $4 and only getting back $1. And the question that we continue to ask, where is the money? Where is it gone? And stop trying to tell us that it's benefiting the people, the young people of this country. When you go around and you ask them the question, what is it you want? The number one thing that they say is more money. They want to know that the government is investing money that they can get better paying jobs. They want to know that the cost of living in this country is being reduced. But we already know bus fares went up. Yeah. Electricity has gone up. Right. The price of bread has gone up. Right? Everything that you learn around this country has become more expensive, which means what? The little money that they had before is not stretching. Okay? And I'm sorry to say to everybody, but there's no hope in sight because we're seeing that this government is only borrowing money and they cannot answer and do not want to answer the question, where is the money going? All this money that you're going to pay 3 times, 4 times the rent. Why? Why is the building costing so much more money? Why are you giving away 300, 400 million US dollars, $1 billion EC dollars of our money? Where is the money going? Explain to us, the average person in Saint Lucia, the young person who's just getting out of school, a person who's been working for the last 3 or 4 years and cannot see an increase in their salaries. Explain to that young person how this is benefiting them. When you go to the hospitals, has there been an improvement? Are you getting medicine? Are you seeing an improvement in your health care?
Are you seeing an improvement in the quality of roads? Are you seeing an improvement in crime in the country? Are you going to the grocery store and seeing more products for a cheaper price? Let us bring it down to how people are going to measure the improvements in our country. They don't want to hear about what's going on in the rest of the world. They want to know that if they want to go to Barbados, their flight has become cheaper. They want to know that buying a drink has become cheaper. Or that they have more money in their pocket that they can afford to buy more drinks. Or they can go and buy more clothes. Let's not forget that we are human beings at the end of the day. That's what we get. That's where we get our thrill of living from. But this government seems to not want to take into consideration the sacrifices that people are making. They're traveling all over the place, VIP lounges all over the place, living large. When people get sick, they're taken out of the country. But that's not translating to the average person in this country. United Workers' Party said we wanted to build a new Saint Lucian. We were doing that. You can see by the numbers that that was working. Because when your government does not have to borrow as much money, and when the impact of the investments that the country is making reduces the unemployment. When we came into government in 2016, youth unemployment was 44%. We brought it down in 3 years to 31. And that's real numbers, not these make-believe numbers that they're coming up with. And telling you when they tell you the unemployment in the country is down to what, 14%? Who the hell believes that? If in fact the unemployment came down to 14%, we would have seen a substantial increase in salaries. No. So I'm saying to you, Spider, saying to you, Guy, and I'm saying to the public a solution. People cannot fool you based on what you're seeing. Has your life gotten better? Do you feel wealthier? This government is spending lots of money. This government is cutting all kinds of deals out there and wanting to say it's for you, but do you feel it? Do you see it? And I'm saying to all of us that this government has betrayed the trust of the people. How many more examples do we need to see that they cannot be trusted? How many more examples do we have to bring to show that this government is doing things in the interest of themselves and their closest friends? All the things that they wanted to accuse my government of, friends, FFF, they're doing that and more. They're doing 5 times as worse than what they alleged that we were doing, and we were not even doing it. And today, as I said to you, first page social economic review, every $4 that this government is investing is costing us $1. We're not even getting a return. It's no different than a vendor going to buy an item for $4 and selling it for $1. It cannot last, and that is where we're heading. And to make up for those losses, that's why you see the debt going up, because they have to pay salaries and they're fooling all of us. All of a sudden, one day we will find that we've just fallen off a cliff.
Well, we have to end it here. I am hoping that you would have found this program, Saint Lucian's, very informative, very interesting. Ironically, you're getting more information from the opposition than you're getting from your government of the day. The government owes it to you to be transparent and to account to you, Saint Lucian. We, the opposition, are going to hold them accountable. We will ask the questions that need to be asked, and in the absence of information, we will provide you with logical conclusions as to what exactly is taking place in this country, what is happening to you. And it's for you to take a stand to ensure that this approach by this government that is bringing Saint Lucian down a slippery slope does not continue, so that at the end of the day, that all is lost and our situation becomes irretrievable. I want to thank all of you for listening. I want to thank those of you in the diaspora who keep tuning in. I want to thank our technical people. I want to thank you, gentlemen, as my panelists. And I want to ask that you tune in on Thursday night, next Thursday, for another, where it will be either Lauren or myself will be hosting, but you will be treated to some more discussions on the matters that concern our interest to you, Saint Lucians, as far as our country is concerned. Stay tuned, keep abreast, be interested. It is your country. You must take an interest and stand up for what is right in your country. Otherwise, we all will perish. Thank you and good night.